Question is what is God doing?
When we think about the world today, it's a crazy place.
Your spiritual life, your own life, your family life. Welcome to Legacy Family. We hope you have had an incredible week, and we are so excited about all that God is doing in your life. I shared last week that God is doing some great things for us. For the core, I'll be sending you some news this week in an email just for you about the things that God is doing. And then next week's message is going to be called And Suddenly. And then before I dive into this week's message, I've never done a message like this before. I want to share some great news. Not only are we going to be grandparents, it's going to be a baby girl, and we are so excited and we are so thrilled and proud. It's Christopher and Brittany, so do not congratulate Caleb and Kaylee or Caitlin for that matter, but we are so excited and thrilled to have another Mitchell in our family. Let's pray. Father, I pray that as we share in the next few moments together, that you will speak to my heart and our hearts together as we learn more about your word. So one of the things I try to do is, in decades of ministry now, is to never repeat a message. Because I believe that if God's word is fresh, well, why should we repeat? That God should always be doing something fresh in us and doing something different. And so today I want to try something that might not work. It might work great, but we don't know. So give me grace and let's try and see how it works by sharing a message through a story, a tale amongst the trees. There was this dad. And this dad's profile was loaded. You go to LinkedIn and I mean, he is the guy. He has all the resources in the world. It's not that he's just making a good living. He has resources. He has abundance. He has influence. He has the power to create. He has the power to change events and opportunities. He can make or break you. It's almost like a mob movie. He is the man. And so this dad has this child. He starts creating children like moms and dads do, and he has this child, Adam. Now, Adam was the spitting image of his father. He was created so much like him that he was just a little mini-me. That he looked exactly like dad, and he looked exactly like how dad had created him in his image. And this father, this dad, wanted to share everything, all of his influence, all of his affluence, everything that he had, he wanted to share with his children. Now this child, he didn't have a wife yet, and so the dad was concerned about that, so he went into creative measures to arrange a marriage with somebody by the name of Eve. And Adam and Eve, as God's children, were both created equal, but with unique talents and gifts. So there's equality, yet uniqueness, like God created us to be. So in that, God came to Adam and Eve and said, because you're my children, I want to share everything with you. And so this dad said, everything that I have, as far as you can see pastures, you can see valleys, you can see snow, you can see rain, you can see desert, you can see beach, you can see oceans, you can see cows. You can see streams, you can see trees. Whatever you see is yours. Because me as a father, I want to share everything with you out of the love of my heart. Now with that, there's a couple of things I want to share with you because you're created in my image, son. And now as the daughter, I want you to know that the way I do things, my will is very important to me. My word is my word. What I say, I keep. And it's a promise to you. And the reason I like words and I like to write them down in letter form to pass on for generations is because a conversation could create chaos, but if I put it in writing, it will continue this legacy family. And he said, and then the third thing is besides my will and my word is my works are important. I haven't gotten here by being lazy, by being complacent, by just sitting around, but I want you to understand the importance of my will, my word, and my works. And I want you to see everything that I'm sharing with you. From the mountains to the streams to the trees to whatever you want is yours. And I want to make success simple for you. And so what I've done is I've created this whole environment for you. And in the boundaries of this environment is the realm of my reign. Rain being raining over something, not pouring rain. And Dad says, in the realm of my reign, as long as you understand my will, my word, and my works, everything's chill, everything's cool, and everything will work out great. And I want to make things so simple for you that out of all the things you can choose, that if you walk by an animal and you want to call it a cow, call it a cow. If you walk by an animal and you want to call it a dog, call it a dog. You can name whatever you want to name. You can do whatever you want to do. I want to set you up for success. There's just one thing I ask you not to do. There's two trees in the middle of this whole thing that I created called the solar system for you to have this realm in. And these two trees, tree number one is called the tree of life. And son and daughter, in the tree of life, there's no death. There's abundance. There's no despair. There's no depression. There is no doubt. There is no disaster. There's no disease. It's just a phenomenal tree, and I want you to eat from that tree. Because for you to sustain yourself, son and daughter, you're going to need to eat from somewhere. And so I want you to feast from the tree of life. It's the only thing I'm asking you to do. Now, there's going to be this other tree, and it's called the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And it's going to look great, son. It's going to look great, daughter. And the twist in this story I'm telling you, son, is there's going to be this guy that comes along and says, if you really want to be like your dad, you should eat from this tree of knowledge. And all of a sudden, you will know everything your dad knows. The challenge is that the dad didn't want us to know everything. He wanted to protect us. He wanted us to let us enjoy life and not carry the burden that the father, the dad, was carrying. And so he said, as long as you'll stay away from that one tree, but this other guy comes along and says, it looks good. And if you eat from it, you'll know everything that your dad really knows. And so the twist of the truth. It wasn't some big ugly tree of you're going to choose death, but it was opposite of everything that God said, but yet it looked great. And so the son and the daughter, they ate from the wrong tree. They ate from the wrong tree, and all of a sudden it changed everything in that moment. The next week we're going to talk about the and suddenlies, and you talk about and suddenly, the dad had to change everything in that moment because the son and the daughter chose to try this tree, and all of a sudden they knew more than they should have known. See, one tree was built on faith. In that faith, you might not know everything, but your dad does. And that's what faith is all about. But the tree of knowledge is you know more than you should, and it doesn't help you at all. And when you feast from the tree of life, life abundantly comes, and there's no disease, no disaster, all these things of greatness in this story. But if you eat from the wrong tree, then all of a sudden you know too much. And all of a sudden you begin to make your decisions based off of the facts that you see in the world. And you see the world in a totally different way because you weren't supposed to see the world that way in the beginning. Because, matter of fact, in the story, the dad, after the kids ate from the wrong tree, they were ashamed and they ran and they hid behind a bush because they realized that they were nude, and they realized that they should be embarrassed, and God never wanted them to be embarrassed about their identity and what wisdom is, intellect. Intellect was created for us to know our identity in God. And so without that, we don't know who we are, but it was never created for us to know the knowledge of good and evil. And so this son and the daughter, they made this wrong choice, and it started this whole episode of events, and suddenly, as soon as it happened, it's all in the letters that this dad wrote. God moved into this emergency response plan to bring things back to his original intent. So that when you would be born and that I would be born, and that we would be created, that there would be a way that we could live in the way that the dad created us to live. There's another story I want to share with you today. There's a story about a father of faith. His name was Samuel. And he went to a dad, and the reason he was a father of faith was the Heavenly Father. Dad trusted him. He was a man of faith. He trusted his will, he trusted his word, he trusted his works and his ways. And so he said to Samuel, I want you to go to the house of Jesse, and I want you to talk to this dad. And I want you to have this dad bring out all of his children. And in bringing out all of his children, I'm going to find the new king that's going to bring my people, my children, back into the process that I originally designed them for. It's part of the emergency response plan. And so Samuel started off the journey, and he got to Jesse's house, and he gave him all the gifts, and he gave him all the honor, and he said, I need to see your sons. Father of faith to just a father of a family. The father, Jesse, pulled out his sons, and Samuel went through his sons and said, great looking face, but no. Man, this guy's body, wow, works out every day, but no. Number 3, but no. Goes through all the sons and says, Jesse, what are you holding out on me? Just father of faith, the father of family, what are you holding out on me? Well, you know what? There is one more son. But he's just a shepherd boy. And he's working out in the pastures, and he's taking care of sheep. And so really it's kind of embarrassing that I don't even count him as my son. That if you want to talk about the king of daddy issues, I'm creating him because I didn't even include him in the family conference, and because I don't even value him enough to respond to him and to let him know what's going on and let him know that you're here. But if you really want to see him, Samuel, I'll have him sent for. And so Jesse sent for David, and David comes, and as soon as Samuel saw him, he goes, he's the one. He's the one. The father that the natural father had abandoned, rejected, overlooked, didn't respond to, didn't even see enough value in to respond and to include in the conversation, was God's choice to continue the emergency response plan. And so there's this tale of the trees. And there's this tale of a father and his children. And so what is the moral of the story? The first moral of the story is, let's talk about Jesse. That you might come from a place that you don't feel valued today. You don't feel included in the conversation. You feel rejection, you feel abandonment. You don't understand where you fit. Maybe you've grown up and your dad abandoned you. Maybe, I don't know. But there's a reason when you get to Matthew, in this whole book of this letters from this dad, it says that the first shall become last, and the last shall become first. David was the last, but David got anointed as king. Matter of fact, when you read the story, it happened so fast that as soon as he saw him, he said, Jesse, anoint him right now. Change his life right now. He might not rule and he might not reign for a few years, but anoint him right now, because he's a man after God's own heart. And that doesn't mean that he will make it perfect. It doesn't mean that he won't make mistakes, but he gets the dad's will, he gets the dad's words, and he trusts in the dad's ways. So anoint him right now. Moral of the story number 1 is, no matter where you are, you might feel last. I don't mind going last anymore, because the last shall be made first. And so it might feel like you're the last choice out of all the choices. And don't let that lead you to despair. And don't let that lead you to disappointment. Don't let that lead you to doubt. Don't let that lead you to the death of your dreams, because it's exactly where God might have you, to anoint you for a future, to lead a whole group of people into a destiny they never knew they could have. So God's not surprised. The second moral of the story is, what tree are you going to feast from? Because every day when we get up, we can choose to feast from the tree of life, or we can choose to feast from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And I could get into my opinions, and one of the things you notice is I never do, about politics and all those things going on in our world, because you hear it enough from other places. But it comes down to this. Most people are eating out of the wrong tree. Even in the spiritual realm, most people are eating out of the wrong tree. But no matter where you are on your adventure and your journey, if you'll choose the tree of life, it is full of life and life abundantly. And the and suddenlies of God can move in your life. And so not only has your dad not abandoned you, he hasn't rejected you, he hasn't forgotten you, he hasn't overlooked you, he hasn't just left you out in the field. He has chosen you with purpose to continue his will, to continue his word, and to lead in his ways. And he's chosen you as an equal, but with a unique gifting to bring to this solar system that nobody else can bring. And when you wake up every day to feast from the grace of God and to feast from the tree of life, you might not know everything that God's doing, but he does. And if you feast from the tree of knowledge, you'll never pull a trigger on a decision. You'll never make a choice. You'll live a life of confusion. Your life will never be filled with peace because it was created that way, because the enemy wants to twist the truth just a little bit for you to think that the more you figure out, the better off you'll be. When God says the less you know and the more you trust me, the greater your life will be. It's a simple path to success. And you know, God can do anything, far more than you could ever imagine, guess, or request in your wildest dreams. And you know, he does it not by pushing us around, but by working within us, his Spirit deeply and gently within us. God has not forgotten you today. And he wants to do great things in your life today as you embrace the life of Christ in the life that you were created for. So I want to encourage you that we love you, we appreciate you, we are proud of you. Share this message, share the Devos, share in giving. Let's make this thing continue to happen and know that you're not just leaving a legacy, but you're choosing to be a legacy family. And God loves you, and we'll see you tomorrow in the devotional.